We had some technical difficulty, but we're live. How's it going?
I'm going well. How are you guys?
Good.
Oh, fantastic. I see 3 smiling, waving people. Fantastic. That's a big PDC, Dr. Gord.
Eager beavers.
Monstrous. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
All right. There's definitely more than 3 people there. I like that. My name is Jan Bernakovich, and today we're doing something a bit different. I'm live casting this. It's a totally new thing for me. But basically, folks can follow along. So be on your best behavior, would you?
Sure.
Yeah. So my name is Jan Bernakovich, and I own and operate Permaculture British Columbia. And I've had the distinct pleasure of working with Gord, who's looking mighty fine like a rock star today, isn't he? My goodness. Basically, I'll tell you a bit about myself, and then we'll jump into the session this morning. I hope to take about 45 minutes, and then we'll have some time for question and answers. So where to begin? I live out on the west coast. I live on Salt Spring Island in a farm called Seven Ravens Permaculture Farm. It's a pretty phenomenal place. It's been going on for 30 years and really works with regenerative, resilient forestry. So there's a multi-stand forest that is used for multiple products and for multiple harvesting techniques. It's a pretty fantastic place. And the gentleman I work with, he's also been going to Kenya for the last 25, 30 years. And so I've had the ability to go with him there and work on some projects, and we'll get a chance to take a look at that. But I think the biggest thing to understand is that I'm to the core Albertan, which has me at a couple of advantages or disadvantages, depending on how you look at it. I tend to want to get her done pretty quickly. And so permaculture has allowed me to slow down a bit and to take in more observation. But it also means that out here on the coast, I'm a bit of a redneck, and over in Alberta, I'm a bit of a hippie, so I'm kind of a man without a province. For those of you that have had interactions with hippies in your lifetime, you might enjoy some of these rather well-curated jokes. How do you know a hippie has come to visit? They're still there. What kind of smokes does a hippie smoke? Yours. And my favorite, when you finally ask this hippie to get on the road and thanks for coming, what does the hippie say to you? Namaste.
Namaste.
Some people got the secondary joke. I like that at the end. You can kind of hear that little titter like, oh, it was funny because he'll stay. Nice. So for the last 5 years, I've been working in permaculture, and I've been training with pretty much anybody who's got the education, the knowledge, and the understanding that can spread what I understand. I've done some training like Gord has with Jeff Lawton. I've also recently been over to Austria to work with Sepp Holzer, who is, formidably one of the most cantankerous old men I've ever met, which is saying something coming from Alberta. I've also worked with Mark Shepard and spent a bit of time with Elaine Ingram. And just generally, if somebody's got something interesting to say, I've taken it upon myself to learn about it, because I see this as being a way of becoming a craftsman in the world today. We all have our inherent occupations and vocations that we've come to permaculture with, but there's almost this sort of before permaculture and after permaculture mentality, sort of a BP and AP, before permaculture and after permaculture. And so before permaculture, I worked in construction, doing residential and commercial construction, first working with my father and then working with others. And then I worked in environmental education. So I help people to understand the flora and fauna of the world around them, specifically in Alberta with Alberta Parks. And I think it was working privately in Edmonton. I was working with a company where we take students down the North Saskatchewan River watershed. And basically they get in the river, and we go down the river and take a look at wastewater quality testing. We go through the wastewater plant. And I realized I couldn't stand that occupation anymore when a couple of students got in the boat. They were so excited, and they got in the boat, and they go, "So we're coming back here, right?" And I looked at them and I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, like we're going to get in the boat, and the boat's going to flow down river, and it's going to come back here, right?" And I realized I didn't have the tools to fix that. I don't have the cognitive capacity to help people to understand that water flows downhill if they're 16 years old and that's never transferred. I didn't have the whole day. Like, all I have is a day. I didn't have enough time to help them understand that that was not the case. So I realized I needed to do something a bit different. So working in construction, I thought, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll try and find some sort of natural building or alternative building. And so I found this pretty fantastic program out on Vancouver Island at One United Resource Eco Village, or OUR, or R Eco Village. And so I worked in natural building there, and I found it was, once you're in building, you're in building. It's just a different material. And then somebody said, "Hey, do you want to take this permaculture design course?" And the reason why I told you the hippie jokes is that I had somebody like that stay at my house for far too long. And she told me about permaculture, and that permaculture is what allowed her to live her life affectionately mooching off others. And so when somebody said permaculture, I was like, I know what that's about. I'm not interested, but thanks. And then somebody said, well, it's half price for anybody who's taken a course with EcoVillage before. And I said to myself, well, being an Albertan, I can't give up half price. So I took the course, and what I came to realize when the instructor had given the prime directive, the 3 ethics, and then Holmgren's 12 principles, is that this was what science has been loosely looking for in the grand unified theory, or GUT, or TOAD, the theory of everything. It's a way to look at anything, to have a lens, and to really end up with a bit of a better understanding, or at least a better lifestyle at the end of it. So I dived in head and hands and feet and everything else I had, and so for the last 5 years I've been designing and working with my company, Permaculture BC. Last year I started a small food enterprise. We were doing microgreens. We called ourselves affectionately Eat, Shoots, and Leaves. And we did a microgreen enterprise in Victoria, which I sold to a student. And now I'm looking at transitioning again and working primarily with larger scale, broad scale climates, and then with what I'm about to talk to you about today, which is all about function and niches. So by this point, I'm guessing most of you have had some experience with the idea of functions and had some experience with the idea of niches. I want to provide potentially maybe a different explanation about the two of them. I take my friend Tad Hargraves, who runs this great company called Marketing for Hippies. So if you find you might be on the alternative side and want to learn more about marketing, I would suggest checking him out. But he goes with the French definition of niche, which is your nest or your place within the community. Well, I've been diagnosed with chronic depression for roughly the last 14 years. And when I was diagnosed, which was only halfway through that time, the gentleman said, well, this is called eco-despair. I've read about this in all the journals. I said, what do you mean eco-despair? What do you mean read about? And he goes, well, it's when you cognitively think the world is doomed. And for those of us that are usually sitting in these classes, we don't think. We tend to have a pretty visceral understanding that the world is in danger. And so I've used that and I've channeled that to help myself consistently redefine and find my niche, and to help others. So I was recently working with Curtis Stone, the urban farmer out of Kelowna, to help define his niche, and was recently on a call with a permaculturist down in the States. And I've been helping another gentleman create a permaculture business in Alberta. So when I talk about function, I talk about, have you guys seen the permaculture chicken yet?
No.
What? Gord? Really?
Yes, guys.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Come on. Don't make it look like he hasn't been teaching you. Or do, that way I can rib him when I see him. So you've got that permaculture chicken in the middle, and then you've got the needs, the yields, and the intrinsic characteristics. So my argument is that we are a function. We are an element in our lives. And as an element in our lives, we provide a function for many other elements within our lives. And if we can come to an understanding about what that function is, what it is that we need to be our function, what we yield when we are our function, and then the intrinsic characteristics or the environmental conditions on where we really thrive, just as we have some chickens that are great for colder climates, we have other chickens that aren't. We need to understand where we place ourselves in that system. Then we get a pretty good understanding about where to be in the world and what to do overall. So this is entitled Exploring Your Functions or Creating Your Niches. And because I gave this at the largest permaculture conference down in California that just happened, I called it Your Permaculture Voice, the most important design for your top client. So limiting factors is one of these major issues we take a look at permaculture design. What is that one thing that's going to limit the design? In some land designs, it's water. In other places, it's access to certain types of livestock. My question to you is, what is your major limiting factor? Not a rhetorical question.
Money. Money.
Money, okay. Anybody else?
Time.
Time. Does anybody have an idea about where money and time come from? Don't say the Rothschild family, okay? Don't say that. Comes from personal energy. Comes from our own personal energy and how much we have to give to others and to create energy and to fill our time. And it's one of the most important things to come down to is what is discernible time? What is discretionary time? And how do we use that time? So we're going to talk about today about this idea of capitalist consumer cog, where we go through these systems and we're kind of put out the other end in the image of the system's mind or the image of the system's masterminds. And we have to re-become humans on a daily basis. Now, part of that means that we start with landscapes, because landscapes for us is the subject of design, and we take a look at all the different factors of landscapes. And so Gord and I come from similar design schools, and one thing we both really enjoy is a tool called the scale of permanence. And within permaculture, I argue that we're actually just building up a big tool belt, a big toolbox of different tools that we can use and we can pull up, and we can become craftsmen in what we do, and we can do it well. So instead of coming into a site and just being a one-hammer carpenter, we can come with this whole broad-scale set of tools and understandings to help the clients get to where they're going. And sometimes those clients are us. So when we take a look at landscapes, we're trying to find the different levels and aspects and these points of implementation or inflection where we can have the largest amount of result for the least amount of effort. So why are we doing any of this in the first place? Well, we're doing this because the landscape is highly, highly degraded. There's no place in the world today where you can't find man-made chemicals and that we can't in some way classify as being degraded. So we have this planet that is in a crisis or in a predicament. This goes from 390 parts per million of carbon in the air to upwards of 410, depending on who you ask. It comes to climate disruption, which is the newest term that's out there from the recent IPCC report. We are now in climate disruption, so it's not only changed, but it is now currently being disrupted. And then we have all of the different social aspects about being monitored and being coerced and co-opted by institutional governmental structures to make them rich or to make them have an easier life versus ourselves. So if this is the case, then isn't it all hands on deck? Don't we need everybody doing exactly what they do well? So we get the pigs in the system, the chickens in the system, the tall trees, the nitrogen fixers. Everybody's doing exactly what they do well, so that way we all have the ability to help each other. Well, we come back to that landscape model or that landscape understanding, because that landscape understanding gives us some of the vocabulary and indeed some of the tools to work. So permaculture has been defined many ways, and I'm sure you've heard the joke that when you ask 99 permaculturalists how many definitions of permaculture do you get, and the response is 120, because most of us like to talk far too much. So in that sense, it really is one of the definitions is this idea of a design approach. It's a way to approach problems or to approach complex sets of diagnoses to understand what's happening, where it's going. Well, not only do we have that outer landscape, but we also have the inner human landscape. We have points of inflections. We have points, key points upon ourselves and within our lives that collect and store water. But so too are these landscapes degraded human landscapes. These are places where we've gone through this capitalist consumer cog system and we've been put out the other side to try and be something for another system versus who we are intrinsically. This is where the rewilding concept and the movement comes into play. How do we just become ourselves? In many ways, this is where the homesteading, the back to the land movement has come from, and the tiny home movement. We're not going to pay somebody else's mortgage or allow our mortgage to then be leveraged in a financial system to make other people furtherly rich versus ourselves. So one of the reasons is, how do we know where a human landscape is degraded? Well, kind of like how all landscapes are, it's that we're alive. If we've been through a school process, I don't think any of us came through school untraumatized in some way, shape, or form, or thinking that we couldn't do something, that we were told that we were wrong or unable or unaware. And so part of that is understanding what that system looks like. So that system on a large scale really comes down to this idea of the tyranny of the talented, that if you're not fantastic at the first go, then why try at all? And then we have this paralysis by perfection. This is really people trying to place us into certain types of boxes. Now, another mentor of mine, Brandon Bauer, likes to say, the only thing good for boxes, besides getting out of them, is to take a box cutter to them, flatten them, and sheet mulch them. And I love his visualness in life, because it's not only thinking outside the box, it's about using the box. If it is this point in the world where we're in the Anthropocene, the place where geologically we will have left our mark on the planet in a way that very few other species have ever done. Without chemistry, we wouldn't have really understood where fossil fuels came from. But we will be able to leave something, so when people, when entities, when aliens, years in the future, come back to take a look at planet Earth, and trust me, 99.99% of the life that has ever existed on planet Earth over the last 4.5 billion years is gone. So we too will end at some point. They're going to be able to see this stratified layer of humanity. It'll be the buildings, the products, the plastics that we produced. And this is the Anthropocene. Sometimes it's also connected with the idea that this is the 6th mass extinction on the planet. So we used permaculture to repair the land and to be in a place where we start to repair the ecological functionality. But what if we just transfer all of the issues that created that land destruction? What if we transfer all those issues and it comes into how we apply permaculture? What if we end up being overworked, overstressed, consumptive human beings without even trying to? So when we take a look at becoming reformed human beings, when we stop being addicts to Western civilization, we have to start with some of the major underpinnings, and one of them is this idea of the glorification of busy, how we always have to be in process. The commonality in the world is see something, do it, and then you will be it. But permaculture really offers something different. It says observe the field, become and be part of the interaction within the ecology, and then do something after you understand it. So instead of see, do, be, we are now see, be, do. Really understand what's happening. Another big issue with the pre-existing culture is the fact that failure has become this worst case scenario. Whereas when we really dive into the idea of failure, when we get down to the Latin root of failure, it's to trip. It's to deceive. So failure is actually just tripping on the road to where you want to go, and it's feedback, because we're always looking for feedback in permaculture. It's feedback to understand, okay, well, that wasn't the way to go. This became such a major underpinning of my work, I made it into a slogan, Malor deficere, or fail better. We've been failing so horribly for so long, it's time for us to start to fail better. And as a mentor of both mine and Gord's likes to say, Richard Walker, who's one of the most experienced food foresters in Canada, how do we fail better? We do it with high-grade information, which you're receiving from the Permaculture Design course, and you'll continue to receive as you explore these things, or these ideas. You do it with high intent, And that's where the permaculture ethics come into play in the prime directive. And we do it with skillful execution, and that's our ability to take these crafts and really hone them. So you're in the permaculture design course, and really it's a buffet of information. You walk down the line and you sample little bit of fundamentals in design and water and trees and a little bit of invisible structures. Ooh, that's not so good. Put that back in place. And you get a sense about what this is all about. So at the end of your PDC, you're kind of standing there, you're looking back down the buffet line, your plate's pretty much empty, and you're thinking, what do I go back for? And I had a lot of students over the last 5 years who came through PDCs, who came through short courses, and they said, okay, so where do I go to now? And in the classic permaculture design course, 72 hours, curriculum by Bill Mollison, there's this hour-and-a-half session or less that says, where to from here? And so you've given this beautiful vehicle, this the Homo sapien going through this, and you filled them with high-octane fuel, and then at the end of it, there's no steering wheel and there's no map. And I thought, well, that's a little bit bizarre. We need people to understand what the landscape looks like and where to go and what to do. But beyond that, we need to help them to chart a path about where they want to go. And more often than not, you hear these horrendous platitudes, which for somebody who's who works and struggles with depression, when we hear these platitudes, we just cringe. There's these ideas of follow your passion, follow your passion. And at Permaculture Voices, there was a lot of people just saying, oh, all you have to do is follow your passion and find your passion. Well, for me, it comes into the mechanics of, well, how? What does that look like? What does that feel like? How do we break that apart? Well, sometimes we can sense it and we can feel it. And just like this pig, I just want to check in. Are you guys seeing the slides as I'm going along here?
No. No slides.
Oh,
You've got no slides.
No slides. We just see your smiling face.
Oh, it's just me. Okay, so you never put up the slides. Okay.
I've been drawing and trying to keep up from what our talks were, but no slides.
Okay. Do you want? This is great. I'm glad I checked in. I've had some brilliant moments here, people. Like I have boxes behind me. It's like, all right, Gord, are we able to put up the slides and then kind of minimize me and put me in the corner a bit?
Are the slides visible?
I sent you a link with the slides, and I can send it to you again. Yeah, maybe we'll do a little
intermission.
What's that?
Intermission.
We could maybe do a bit of an intermission. Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
All right. I'm just going to send this to you again, Gord.
Okay, perfect.
This is great. I'm just going to put it in the subject line.
Oh, that came in last night.
Yeah.
Wow, there's that piggy. Looks like a rock star.
Do I have to enter a...
Can you get him back up and just make the screen small? Have both have drawings on it.
So Javin, I've got this up. I just can't sign in. Do I have
Sign in to...
Pressify.
Oh, that's fine. Basically, what will happen is I'll change them from here, and it'll change automatically.
Okay, we got the piggy up.
Yeah, so if you want to put the pig up and then just throw me in the corner or something, or just turn the computer around and have me on the computer.
We've just got piggy up, and you're... Do we need you on the computer as well?
It doesn't matter. It's up to you.
Okay, piggy's up.
Okay.
If you make the screen smaller while you still do that.
when we did this in Alaska, they threw the slides up on the wall, and then they had me on the computer, and then turned around to the audience. So.
Okay. We have to change some settings in my.
We love his smile and face. We get to see him on all day on May 10th. In real life. See the back of him.
We're just having issues with changing over to my projector.
Okay.
So Piggy's up. You're on.
Fantastic.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
And we're back.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right. So jumping back into it, how do you tell if you found your passion, or what does that look like, or what does that feel like, or what can we do to understand it? What's that?
You're happy as a pig in shit.
Oh, you guys got it. You're happier, or you're happy as a pig in shit. This is a photo that was graciously given to me by Joel Salatin of Polyface Farms in Northern Virginia. And the way he likes to say it is, you need to find the biological expression. Well, actually, the way he said it is, you need to find the biological expression. Like, how, as a human being, or how, as an element, is it biologically fully expressed to the largest extent of its functionality? So, in the pig's case, we can understand it. And this is a great example. This is, Joel brings in his cows, and his cows come into a little side barn on the side of his big round wood pole structure. And then in the winter, what he does is he lays down the bedding, the cows lay down their manure, then he lays down corn, and then he goes like that, stratified up and up and up and up and up, to the point to where at the end of the winter, sometimes this bedding layer system can be 20 feet tall, where the cows continually layer. He brings the cows out, and then he sends in which he affectionately refers to as the pigorators. And the pigorators go in and do their pigorating, right? They are in there as their natural function, which is rooting around, looking for the corn, but at the same time, they're turning the compost. So the function of who they are, the function of how they are as an element, is fully expressed. So it's one of these concepts about how do we find our functions, how do we be a pig in our own system without being a chicken, as per se. So this is where we come to understand that we need to find this functionality of how we operate in the system. Almost on a weekly basis, I'll get somebody who sends me their resume saying, I'm really interested in permaculture, I'd love for you to hire me. And I always have to giggle a bit, because so much of this work is about being entrepreneurial and going out and helping people solve the problems that they find in the world. And when people send me their resume, in some ways, they're still enacting this previous generation of, oh, you're going to do all the work for me, and you're going to provide a structure so I can apply myself. Well, in these situations, that doesn't really exist. When I was at Permaculture Voices and I gave this talk, there was about 120 people in the audience, and I said, how many of you are gainfully employed by somebody else in permaculture? And 1.5 people put up their hands. The one guy was like this, and the other guy was doing this, kind of, I kind of get paid for it. I said, well, how many of you own your own company or employ yourselves in permaculture? And that was more shocking. There was only one person who put up their hand. So here's a group of people who are actively seeking to apply permaculture to their lives or use it. Not necessarily I'm a permaculturalist, but I'm using that. And so the concept comes to be is that, you know, our dream job or our dream functionality probably doesn't exist. We have to go out there and we have to create it in the same way we have to go out there and we have to change natural systems or repair natural systems. So I don't know if anybody remembers these, but does anybody remember the Owl magazines when they were kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I have no idea what your age ranges is because you're very tiny little pixelated objects on my screen, so maybe your kids. I always liked the owl magazines because it would start off with birds, and you'd open up and you would say, birds have wings. I'm like, oh, I like that. That's great. Birds have feathers on their wings. Also good. Thank you. Birds' wings have bones. Good to know. Birds' wings have bones that are hollow. Interesting. And what I liked about this is they move slowly and they help to build on that knowledge slowly versus giving you everything all at once. So what we'll do is we'll run through this system that I've been using with students to help them establish and explore their function, and then how to create a niche out of the whole thing. And the one forewarning, the one cautionary tale I'll give about niches is you have to think about niches like dating. You have to date your niche. It's not necessarily a long-term monogamous relationship the moment you think about it. So it's not you meet your niche and you're like, I want to be with you forever. It's, I'm going to date you. I'm going to take you on a couple dates. I'm going to get to understand you a bit and maybe see if it's a good fit. So when we talk about finding your niche, some people transfer over that idea of silver bullet mentality from the old paradigm that we're leaving, which is, oh, this is the one true thing I'll always do. And as we work in natural systems, we tend to realize that every element serves so many different functions in the ecology, in their community. And so too, if we are going to move into biomimicry, we must as well. So simplified, there's this concept of your function, which is what you do, how you do it, and why you're doing it. Then we have your focus within permaculture. So as you go along that buffet, there's going to be things that you're eating that you really enjoy, and there's other things you don't. Well, the things that you do enjoy, we really want to strike on that first. And then the last piece is, what are the local problems, or what are the local issues, or the local world problems that you identify with. There's a lot of them out there. But when we overlap all of these three things together, we get this beautiful moment in the middle, and that's really where you can find your niche or your niches, or the places to come together. So as I said before, I'm a bit of a recovering Western civilization person. I feel like I'm in rehab with permaculture, and I'm starting to get a sense about who and what I am. And so just like AA, I've developed this 12-step process. So we start with motivation. And motivation is pretty key. It's the why and how and when. It precedes all of that. It's what is the motivating factor for you. So there's two types. There's that internal push, what pushes you forward. What is that internal reasoning? Why do you do what you do? And then there's the external, the outer pull. So the external outer pull is usually easier to recognize. It's the state of the nation. It's the fact that Fukushima has happened and we need to work quickly to understand how to remediate that situation. It's the political structure that's around us, and we see it gutting our scientific community across the board, and we feel we need to do something about that. Those are the external forces that pull us forward. And all of this is really based on a concept that most of our visions and our thoughts about the future are unconscious, unwritten, and unclear. And so this process allows us to place these into space by writing them down and understanding what they actually are. That inner push is the reasons why we get up to do what we do in the morning. You know, personally for me, it's around the ideas that I've got a huge desire to change the world, and I try to boil that down more and more. And really it has to do with the fact that I have to do it. It's in my genes, and when I try to take a step back or take a vacation, me and Gord were talking about this the other day, I'm always sitting there like, there's got to be an orchard around here that we could go and investigate, or there's got to be some sort of keyline or topography that we can play with, or there's got to be a permaculturalist around here that we can go and visit and see something and record, which of course makes going on vacation with me very difficult. But we need to understand what our motivations are, because when the going gets tough, when there's frustration or pushback, we need to come back to that core, because this is the wellspring. This is what gives us the fuel to move forward. And so understanding it and putting it forward allows us to come back to it. The second piece is destination. So that's getting a sense or a clear vision of where we want to be in the future. There's a man by the name of Thomas Leonard who was really the grandfather of the life coaching movement. And he had an interesting concept which I've come to really understand is important. And that's that goals tend to be these fear-based reward systems where we either reach them and we're happy, but then we need to figure out what's next, or we don't and then we feel shitty about ourselves because it didn't really work out. What his concept was is to have a vision. Have a vision of what's going to happen in your future versus a goal, and the vision is a broad vision. The idea that through my work I help to regenerate natural systems. So that's one of my visions. Another vision for me is anywhere I go in the world, I'm of maximum benefit to the local populace. And one of the last ones that I have is any person I interact with, I help them to further define and refine their function and their niche in the world. So these are visions I have, and as I work through my work, they become more and more and more reality. But when we move towards our visions, part of that is understanding, okay, so what are some tools we can get to understand that? Because more often than not, we're only as effective as our tools. Well, this is Lindsay and Mary on a recent PDC I helped to facilitate and teach down in Cuba. And if you're unaware about Cuba and its connection with permaculture, I highly recommend the movie The Power of Community, How Cuba Survived Peak Oil. A little biased, but it really allows you to understand the special period they went through and how they dropped 80 and 90% of their food imports and their oil imports, and they had to become self-reliant really quickly. And a lot of permaculturists came on board to help them do that. So we were down there just recently in February, and we were surveying the site we were working on there, and this is an optical site level, which is a little crosshair, and it's got a spirit bob in the middle, and then on the right-hand side, that's a leveling rod that rolls up to a little masking tape size packet. So these are tools I can take anywhere. And they're accurate to about 20 feet. But beyond that, I need to use a different tool to really get accuracy on the landscape. So one of these tools that I found for setting goals or setting visions is from holistic management, called holistic goal setting. Now, holistic management was created through the works of Alan Savory, and it's really about a decision-making framework on how to approach any piece of land. But what I found is applying it with clients and students, it's an incredible tool about how to approach our lives. So as designers, what do? We go out there and we say, what do you want to our clients? And our clients say, I don't know. They don't really have a sense yet. So this is one of those ways to help them get a sense or to help us get a sense. Gord, have you gone through a holistic goal setting with folks yet?
We have, and we've even been working on setting the holistic goal for the final design project as well.
Perfect. Okay, great. So I'll just run through this quickly. So same thing when we're doing it personally. We're defining the whole, the decision makers, the people who influence our daily decisions, the resource base, both tangible and intangible, so the tools we hold and how we hold those tools, and then the money or the financial contribution we have to put towards these goals. We take a look into the past, so we chart successes and failures to get a sense of the patterns or the trends within our lives. And then we look into the future for the quality of life statements. And this is really where that idea of how we want to spend our time comes into play. So if I have a quality of life statement that I have time to build my strength as a human being, if a new situation comes into my world, which is I have to take on more time for that, I don't have as much time to get a good night's sleep and then to exercise in the morning, then I get a good sense if that's going to work for my overall holistic vision or holistic goal. This now comes into this idea of emulation and origination, which is a lot of people go throughout a permaculture design course and they think, I'm going to be Jeff Lawton or I'm going to be Gord Hiebert, which I'm sure a lot of you are thinking at this point. If anybody wants to send me like the rock star drawings they have, I would love to make him blush and send them out virally. But it's this concept that, you know, I'm not Sepp Holzer and neither are you, even though we might look a lot alike. We're not the same person, and for me to try to be Sepp Holzer is to really lose out on a beautiful experience of me being myself and to experience and to express all that I bring to this work. For me, it's really been understanding that I've been trying to find my niche and my function for so long. I have this set of tools which has become pretty useful for others. We move on to function at this point. So it's the observation of the function and the assessment. So if you want to play the home game, basically take a sheet of paper and draw 4 lines segmenting your piece of paper into 5 different sections. When we talk about zones, we talk about what's close to us and what's far away from us. We talk about how much energy we have to put into these different zones. And we also talk about designing incrementally, or as I like to say, we design incrementally to avoid excremental results. So we move slowly to get a sense about what's going on so we don't end up with a huge pile, which really makes the pig happy, but nobody else. When we take a look at these zones of brilliance, we take a look at the things that are closest to us, which we do naturally. And so after I gave this talk in Permaculture Voices, I had 2 people come up to me, and one said, "You changed my life because I thought I had to be a composter my entire permaculture career, but actually I'm a mechanic, and I'm going to continue to be a mechanic because I'm a meticulous thinker." And that's one of his zone 1. And he loves working with mechanical action, and that's another zone 1. But compost for him was a zone 3. And so he works at his zone 1s, and through that he has enough energy to go to zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, and zone 5. So zone 1 has 3 different aspects to it. It's something we're good at, we have skill in. Something that is enriching or regenerative, which means after we do it, we have more energy or impetus or inspiration than we'd had before. And the other one is enjoyment. So I'm learning more about microhydro. And while it takes a lot of energy out of me to do it, I do enjoy it and I'm building skill in it. But it's not a zone 1. Teaching for me, definitely a zone 1. Some writing for me, definitely a zone 1. Doing broad landscape design is this year a zone 1 for me. But it takes time to understand these things, and so it's part of this is taking an observation of what the human landscape looks like and what are your own personal zone 1s. Zone 2 are things we have skill in that may not be enriching, so we're not regenerated by them specifically, but we do enjoy them. They're enjoyable, but we don't feel like we have more energy afterwards. So one of the things for me in this is that I really enjoy putting together presentations and these types of speaking pieces, but I'm really drained afterwards, so I have to realize that I need to have a lot of energy before I go on to a zone 2 skill. In zone 3, things we don't have skill in, they aren't enriching, but we do enjoy them. So these are the things that we're learning to do. So we enjoy them, but we're learning to do them. It's taking time. So microhydro definitely for me is zone 3. Zone 4, things we have skill in, we don't find enriching, and we don't enjoy. So these are the in case of emergency, break glass and use skill. So if we're in straits where we need to be able to produce time and energy through the form of money, then we use these. And then last but not least, we don't have skill in, we don't enjoy, and it's definitely not enriching. So how do we approach this? Well, we start with zone 1 skills. Those are the things, those are the low-hanging fruits, those are the quickest leverage points. And then we take a look at zone 2, which are the experiments. So this is how we change things, and we get a sense of understanding about how they work and why they work. On zone 3, we look at things that we learn about or we expand our understanding. And then zone 4, these are the things that we use when necessary. Zone 5, these are things we observe. So for me, taking a look at zone 5, these are the things in the world where these are the shoulds, the societal shoulds, the things that we think we should be doing or we should be doing well. And especially in permaculture, there's a lot of shoulds. I'll show you an example here in a moment about a woman who really thought she should be a really good mapper, but she realized that her desire to be a good mapper was holding her back from her other skills. When we take a look at this, we do the zone 1s and we guild with everybody else about the zone 2s to 5s. So in this situation, I was working and doing a lot of my own design and mapping, and I came to realize that I was doing a lot of paper mapping and it wasn't getting off my desk fast enough. So I guilded with one of my students who was a graphic designer, and he put together things like this that were just beautiful and amazing. And from a friend of mine who was a landscape architect used to say, you know, paper drawings is a good idea, but these computer renders really get across the idea that this is real and tangible and can happen. Another aspect is I've been working with another landscape architect and an architect up island, and so this is a large project that I would never have the skill to do personally. I don't work in large-scale home design, but it's a 9-acre, 21-home development where they're bringing myself and another individual in to work on all the different plantings, the nut orgers, and all the different water features. So really, zone 2 to zone 5, we really want to guild with other people. We've seen this before, so we start with a source, and in permaculture, we really are just source capturers. We try to capture all the energy that comes from the source, which either comes from water or comes from the sun, and we try to store it as many times as possible in the landscape. So part of this is understanding all our different skills and our zones to capture and store our human energy and potential into everything that makes us come alive while still holding on to our discretionary time. So again, the source, and then we explore zone 1 with excess energy. So we work on zone 1 gardens, and then from that energy or from that enterprise, we build out from zone 2 to zone 5. Now, in the same sense, when we take a look at zones of permaculture interest, and I would really suggest you do this as you go through the rest of the course, is start to place all the different aspects that come to you in the course into a zone 4 or zone 5 to 1 setting. So you might come up against composting, and composting is on a zone 1 to zone 5 rating. For some people, they love it. For some people, it's not that big of a deal. But within composting, there might be a specific composting technique that you love. Maybe bokashi, maybe trench composting, maybe vermicomposting. But the more specific we can get there, towards the end, we can really find where potentially a leverage point for an economic niche can be. In the same way, we start with zone 1, we experiment, we learn, we use when necessary, and we observe. So to give you an example here, Lila Darwish is a good friend of mine, and she wrote this book called Earth Repair. She basically surveyed everybody who was working in earth repair in the world without actually being a technician herself. She's also the woman who said that mapping wasn't really her thing. By getting rid, or psychologically saying, zone 5, I'm going to come to eventually, but I'm going to work in zone 1, she was able to understand the whole system a lot better, and she was able to be quite successful. So now this book is out. And she's getting work as being a practitioner in this world because she's built up skill by interviewing a lot of other people, so she found this great niche. We also take a look at intrinsic characteristic, and there's an instrumentation process I use to help people understand what are the environmental conditions that they really enjoy. Another good friend of mine, Christopher Heffley, has taken a couple of permaculture design courses. He created this great company called Permaculture, which is a permaculture t-shirt company. And if you come across this yet, the idea of it all depends. Now, is this a huge moneymaker for Chris? No. But does it get his name out? And is he now working with other larger scale enterprises? Yes. So again, zone 1s don't always fit the entire bill, but we need to take a look at diversified income streams in the same way that different elements in ecology bring in a lot of energy. The last example I'll give is a teacher and friend of both mine and Rob's, Gord, Rob Avis. So Rob was an engineer and came into permaculture and tried to really be this, to be the uber permaculturalist, and he's come to realize that he's actually an engineering permaculturist, and he likes working with engineering problems and permaculture problems. And so he's kind of made this full circle where he's come back to his meticulous nature because that's who and how he is. So that's the idea of function. It's all the different aspects of who and how we are. Then we take a look at the problems. And these are the immediate problems that are facing your local government or local people. This is really taking stock of the local state of the nation. And so we go through the permaculture flower, because permaculture provides the framework, and we go through building, land stewardship, and any of these different petals that really light us up. Those are the petals that we dive into. And then we do surveys, we do conversations, we take a look at where the money is being spent in municipalities, and we ask the question, what is it worth to you to solve those problems? Is it worth 10 bucks? Is it worth 100 bucks? Is it worth 100,000 over 5 years? What is your waste stream working process, and how can we work with that? And I think Gord is a great example of doing that with his analysis of bokashi as a municipal composting strategy to take care of waste streams. That's a local problem that could be solved with the mentality of permaculture, because permaculture really is a thought process. It's not a thing. I like to say that the thinking's revolutionary, but the solution's just interesting. Then we move into design, and really that's taking all the information we have, the data overlays, to see where those pieces meet. It's kind of the concept that we get all the right Lego blocks, and when we put the right Lego blocks together, or just delineate that they are a Lego block, then we can build up ourselves as people, and we can really find our heart's desires. I'll just let that sink in. That was my big finale. I'm joking. So then we take a look at success defined. So we take a look at where our success is at the end of the road. So what does success look like in that niche 12 months down the road? Well, I was recently in Kenya and I was doing a project there, and we took 0.54 acres and we designed it in 18 days into this beautiful landscape, which include 3 ponds, a dormitory that slept 20, kitchen, and a tree nursery. And so all these photos are from the same angle, where we're taking a look at JB, the operations managers there. We're taking a look down the long strip. And we created the Practical Permaculture Institute of Kenya in just 18 days because we had a good idea of what success looked like. And how did we do that? Well, we took backcasting. Where do we want to be in 18 days? Well, we want to have all this done. Great. What happens the day before? Well, we need to be finishing up most of the plaster on the buildings. Great. The day before that. Well, at that point, we have to get the roofs up. Great. The day before that. And we worked our way back, all the way back to day 1. So I use this process with students so that way after this process or this workshop, they know exactly where they're going forward. I did this when I created this Eat, Shoots, and Leaves company. We went from idea to our first sale in 8 weeks, and then we had a successful business that produced money and income for both of us and just expanded our knowledge base. And that's really where we end up, is where do we gather high-grade info from? Well, at Permaculture Voices, there was a huge amount of people there, a huge amount of numbers of people there with an incredible amount of knowledge. So we seek high-grade info to move forward once we understand what we really enjoy in permaculture. So here's my challenge to you. Most of us don't get these challenges, or we're not told that people dare us to really take charge. So my challenge to you is that post your course with Gord is to take 10 days and $100 and to take 1 skill of brilliance and a zone 1 permaculture interest, where I was calling them voices interest just because I was at the conference there, and to build either interest or income. So some of these things start as hobbies and they build with surplus into larger ideas. After Permaculture Voices, a woman went back to Cortez Island and started a Permablitz network and called me up and said it took no money at all in about 8 days. So that's my challenge if you guys are interested in taking me up on it. And if folks are interested in maybe exploring this a little bit more and just taking some time, some focused time to delineate these processes, coming up in just a couple of weeks, I'll be offering an online course that goes into this, that goes through all these different methods in a much more in-depth model and allows you to take the time from week to week to really explore it. It's based on the gift economy, so the course itself is a gift. It's a $50 non-refundable deposit, and then the value of the course is what you felt it was. And then at the end of the course, if you feel that there was some value obtained, then you can financially or through skill or through whatever it is, gift back the course. I'm really trying to get this out there and get people mobilized, because as Gord and I know, you get 100 people who go through a PDC or multiple PDCs, and you get about 1 or 2 who are mobilized. And for those of us that really feel that motivation, we need to change quickly. So I leave you with what's on my chalkboard when I wake up in the morning. It's just to wake up, kick ass, and repeat. So if folks are interested in learning more about that work or other work I do, you can reach me at permaculturebc.com. And I'll see you in a few weeks talking about hugelkultur and how much I think it's a great tool in the tool belt. So I see that I have exactly 5 minutes for questions, and if folks are interested, I'd be happy to answer any sort of questions or go back to any slides that folks want to take another look at.
Anybody?
The last one.
The last slide. Wake up, kick ass, repeat.
I wasn't writing fast enough. No.
Sure.
High-grade info in a circle?
That one?
Oh, about the course and whatnot, the challenge, yeah. One before that.
The $100 challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, the $100 challenge. Great.
Okay, both of those.
And the other thing I can do if people are interested is I can box this slideshow up into a PDF and I can send it to Gord and he can make it available for you guys.
Please.
And there's more info on Permaculture BC on this challenge and all the course.
There's more information about the workshop. There's not more information about the challenge, but I'm getting more people who are calling back and letting me know that things have happened. So I've been thinking I might turn it into a blog or a Facebook group or something, just to start to aggregate them to get a little bit more inspiration out there about actually doing.
Yeah.
Anyone want to see any other slides?
Just back to the circles.
Back to the circle.
Oh, the big circle? Sure. This one?
Perfect.
Sure. The 12 steps to become unaddicted to Western civilization. I feel like we should all stand up at the beginning of a PDC and say, my name's Javin, and I've been addicted to Western civilization for about 30 years. I like long walks on the beach.
And I did copy this on the whiteboard too.
Nice. Thanks, Gord.
Well, it's not as good.
Easier
Good
to
job.
read on this
What was that?
It's not as good, but in tribute to you, there is a stick man.
Oh, thank God for the stick man. Gord really helped me to understand and to explore holistic management, and as we were going through it, I just kept shaking my head saying, Gord, this is so confusing. I don't understand this at all. It just seems so convoluted. And the next week, I came back. I said, Gord, I figured out holistic management. You know what the problem was? It needed more stick men. So I appreciate that. There's a little tribute. I like that.
So I'm just going to show you, we do have a whole class here, and everyone just say thank you to Javin.
Thanks, everybody. I'll send a little bit of a follow-up email to Gord with the PDF, and then if folks want to fill out just a quick little feedback form, that'd be great. And have a great time with your PDC. You have an exceptional teacher and an extraordinary opportunity, so I hope you all take advantage of it. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks when we start to bury wood and call it something to do as an occupation. Adios, everybody.
Thanks, Javin.